من تموز يوليو بعيد القديس شربل. ألقى البطريرك الراعي عظة بعنوان هذا عبدي اخترته فأشعر روحي عليه ليعلن الحق للأمم المأخوذ من إنجيل القديس متى، واستهلها قائلا: نبوءة أشعيا النبي إنما قيلت عن ربنا يسوع المسيح ابن الله منذ الأزل الذي أرسله الآب متجسدا لخلاص البشرية جمعاء، فمسح بشريته بالروح القدس وأرسله ليعلن الحق لجميع شعوب الأرض. يسميه أشعيا عبدا، واللفظة مشتقة من فعل عبدا ومنه
西班牙英系球员CEO李刚分析认为，
中国推进网络强国建设，不仅造福中国自身，更惠及世界。新时代以来，中国推动实现网络空间应用共同体，积极参与全球互联网治理。关于全球互联网发展倡议一系列中国理念、中国主张、中国方案赢得了国际社会更多的认可和支持。各国在网络空间修复以后，相互构建网络空间应用共同体，携手迈向更加美好的数字未来。
习近平总书记提出的使命任务和重要原则，替所有征询有谋生虑远，为做好新时代新工程两性工作指明了前进方向，为推进实现网络强国提供新的开局。
不定时不间断对河边进行巡查，发现安全隐患及时制止。同时，这些我们上堂中学对学生做好防溺水安全知识讲座，减少了事故隐患。
位于常州市武进区凤苑南路与临欧路交叉路口离河附近水域，虽然附近有禁止野泳警示标识，但是河中仍有几位市民在野泳，岸上也有不少人带着孩子准备择机下水。而在西太湖揽月湾景区的清水平台，一对父子正准备从台阶下水，被管理人员及时制止。
保安跟我讲，这边水有点深，不能游，我就走了。水深你怕不怕呀？水深我倒不怕，我会游泳啊。自己是就游泳了吗？一直到现在。
景区管理办公室综合部副部长蒋志军说，进入暑期，西太湖揽月湾游客量增加，管理难度增大，野泳有成人也有青少年，为此他们增加警标识标牌以及语音提醒设备，景区增加了安保力量，每天有60多人在重点区域不间断巡查。
南线救援工作站，我们这边有提议，他们在相关区域水域加大一个巡查，提醒广大市民游客，西太湖水域风大浪急，平均水深2.2米，为了维持家人的安全，请远离危险水域，禁止
长江两岸进入暑期后，海事部门也加大海巡警巡。
我小看忙不起个用个药的，但没这样，我吃那去啊，了公给个不了，你忙个月是这是这个头拿穷，到底呢，那么些长不当的，那个开吧，这个月呢肯定呢，但这个长不公过用呀的，等我让长呗，本身前边那去图片这个这个药的，实际上的你们这个错外拿落了，俺这个啥子这个呢，这错外空气给拖呢，本身前边那前有不这个印度。他的那这的这个蒙古节，你谁这给拖呢的？所谓空气年不谈的送这个呢，谈的如果出息了没吧？今天蒙古节的所谓空气这个差点一对，他这个药当过药吧？谈的那这的跑呀了啥子？他这拖呢忙个这个用不了的，刚才个送呀前面的鞋子都过去呀，忙还不到说出没病呢。他是个呀，年个钱要的送给得用个东西，其实这个你们这样子啥呀拿了呢？啥呀这个忙差不多，今天拖呢拿着的用呀年个钱，让开了钱个呢。
他给多了说到他的，来你了自己多了，那这个公告里呀，这个麻烦中央要送过了。第一我呢考到第考了各位就在蒙古了，因为啥现在看到的出过的 chronic infections 的，那这国内忙起的公告了忙。还是呢，公布的我这忙起来。
日本和美国政府没有采取任何行动，我们呼吁联合国帮助保护儿童的安全和权利。我们敦促日本政府调查污染问题，保护本国儿童。
The physical tests
and attributes his unfaltering fitness to having competed in the 1972 Munich Olympic Games. Though in the 18 years since signing up, John has had to overcome some obstacles. In 2014, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, a condition which affects the brain.
I inevitably thought that they're going to turn around to me and say, you can no longer go. And they haven't done that, and the fact that they haven't done that, I'm very honoured that that's the case.
This will make John the second person with Parkinson's to travel to space, after the NASA astronaut Rich Clifford in 1996. A former businessman in the candy wholesale industry, John spent $250,000 on his ticket, and it's an investment he stands by.
I think it's exceptional value for money. I mean, it's now $450,000. So you could say I got a bargain in signing up first of all.
Also on board the VSS Unity, that's Virgin's spaceship Unity, will be Keisha Shahaf, a health and wellness coach from Antigua and Barbuda, and her daughter Anastasia Myers, a philosophy and physics student at the University of Aberdeen. The three-person crew is expected to launch on August the 10th from Spaceport America in the state of New Mexico.
All right, that's about all we have time for, but let's get to some of your feedback before we head off on the Com Games and whether we should have them here. They're a white elephant, says this person. I'd love to see evidence of positives in the community of Birmingham, UK. The cost of living crisis is much worse there. Mary reckons, yep, vote for the Commonwealth Games be held at a venue that is ready to go without any major infrastructure work. If you missed anything on the program, check us out on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcast from. Kuti kaupapa tuatahi, Purple tomorrow from 5 a.m. First up says, Guten Morgen to a German football coach who's here for the World Cup. Do tune in for that. It will be a very good morning. Thanks, Lisa. Now time for the 6:30 headlines. And Lauren Ann Dickerson, who denies murdering her 3 young children in Timaru, has been described by her husband as not a nurturing mother. Video footage of Graham Dickerson's 2021 police interview were played to the High Court at Christchurch. The 2026 Commonwealth Games are in doubt after Victoria, Australia, pulled out amid costs that threaten to hit $7 billion. The Nurses Union says its members employed by Te Whatu Ora have received an improved collective agreement offer a day before a ballot for a 24-hour strike next month is due to close. And air quality alerts are in force for millions of Americans as 900 wildfires burn across the border in Canada. Those are the headlines. Our next news and weather at 7.
Tomorrow on Afternoons with Jesse Mulligan, economic indicators tell us inflation should be easing, but the prices at the supermarket tell a different story. Analysts say some corporations are using the recent upheavals as an excuse to raise prices and keep them high. Tracy Allaway calls it excuseflation. And she joins me to talk about how companies take advantage of disruptions to keep their prices up. She joins me on Afternoons from 1 p.m. tomorrow here on RNZ National.
石油天然气体制改革，以加快构建新型电力系统为目标，深化了电力体制改革。我们再来了解其他方面。记者从广铁集团了解到，今天受台风泰利影响的部分停运列车正陆续恢复运行。据了解，琼州海峡粤海轮渡预计在今天22点恢复通航。经铁路部门检查，确保安全后。
这个蒙古地区有的吧？地区这个呢，第一个呢，俺们缺乏人的经历呢，那经历的这个经历能没有经历的，当然性个底下个这觉得这个经历蒙古的话，一个的那样忙差不多。俺的实际缺呢，俺的如果能够要是的话。实际如果现在严的，因为实际要的，如果了不能要的，偏要忙着。别人想想呢，他的老百姓就讲我什么呢？他实际这个，如果那了，能就这那了，实际的要个的忙干不大。俺们有那个主力的这个农上面呢，拿着蒙古这个我企业的实际差不多，现在他的寻求蒙古这领域。
对，那他的当然了，咱做票子电脑了，你马第一票给啥都干了，所谓的时间给穿的全被马丁变的是不他不这个送过药吧？时间了，你在这让干的这个人大对外盘的咋是想叫这个印度个呢？但现在嘞马 말에 저도 제생겨 마망 부지 중고열에 엔디 간을 표제나로를 차디 근거네 마야고 매배간을 차지 레비는 아니 차세 지금 꿀꿀진도 태하죠 지체고요 말을
좋아라서 다가라네 마데 저르다체 마데 식지 도거봐 차데 정중의 중매차 말아서 벽 서구의 중매 차야가 되지 임베이나 이게 파마 가르이네 해야 된다면 최고야다 망사비나 누구서 매는 먹으려나지 아니 되죠 어머로지 쉬나면은 매는 그 진이 가섭체는 돌려야 저 능경아 진에서 그 매대가 매는 옆에는 그 진이 가섭체는我喜欢绿的。
知道我们两个比较吧，我们是的。
我们两个比较的嘞，这钱我们新的，我们两个比较嘛是吧？现在中国那个农药学这个。
我那是差不多那个这个日。디 탄다야 인연의 정신되게 모르나 술라네 소외 kum시 다 세디게 기토를 전환치 거야 선수但이내에 나저디 지금 모용 콜 지금 내다라 가르카르 지금 튕고요나로 또 믹스 지금 닝자가야 비슷한 사지금 얘가 전부 지그라 레벨자가야 닝자가야 사딘즈리디
现在상매 긴과지 하양시 체디
in the high 40s, for example, what are we going to have to do to new homes that we build into the existing stock of properties? Well, there are two things that need to be done. The first one for the existing stock is obviously to have some better ventilation, or if people can afford it, air conditioning. But in the long run, we need to have designed better homes that are more able to keep the building inside and the people inside cooler during the high temperature periods outside. It's not just a Europe and North America problem. Liz, for example, listening in the car, has been in touch by WhatsApp today. She's concerned about storms, keeping her home safe from lightning strikes, for example. We've had other people talking about how they're concerned about running their air conditioning all the time. So that's their concern. That's going to exacerbate climate change. It does make things even
传塑造中融入地名元素，培育打造一批相对好、土字号的公共品牌，助力本地优质农副产品、旅游服务资源等推介推广。对于农民朋友来说，还能打造乡村特色。
有些人看到这个价格高了，对不对？他就把平常卖不动的产品看到然后就销售，这个对整个行业的发展非常不利。
一条是看着自己觉得更高兴的另一条中药材种植难度并没有因价格大幅上涨而上涨。那么谁吃了中药材导致市场中间的钱，问题究竟出在哪？继续来听记者的调查。
记者在亳州调查走访多日，当地冷库爆满，甚至兴起冷库投资热。冷库企业今年新增较多，而仓储价格不降反升。当地多位业内人士告诉记者，有些商家是正常存放，而有些是几百吨、上千吨的存放，人为减少使用供应。而在价格持续暴涨的情况下，有关部门在平抑市场价格、打击囤积炒作方面是面临一些实际困难。亳州市大疗理主任袁文昭对中国之声表示，可能中药材价格异常上涨的原因是多方面的，但只是
这个有的俺们你上面的，你看你要区别你所谓保守自我呢。
You can't underestimate how significant it will still be because this country was a country that was a tip basket for the world.
What do you think of the chances of Russia sort of going back on its decision, or what sort of international appeal can there be for Russia to reconsider its stance?
而成本较高，抗自然风险能力较差，而炒作中药材的门槛却比较低。亳州市中药饮片产业促进会副会长汪宗喜说。
现在的中药材种植几乎还都是一家一户的农户在种植，真正的是公司化的这种。
It was supporting food security globally. It was helping farmers locally. It shouldn't be seen as part of the war effort. It should be seen separately. I would like to hope that the initiative isn't finished and that some oxygen can be breathed back into it.
Was Matthew Hollingworth, and before that, Dave Caldinger.
We've been talking about the extreme weather gripping the northern hemisphere throughout the program today and asking for your text. Listener in Illinois, in the US. There's the sun in Chicago who's once again been pink with the haze from Canada's incinerator.
场都有日常巡查和监管。当前市场上这样的情况是存在的，但相关交易行为还没有达到行政部门介入的标准。
发现有这个碰撞的量呢，真有道理，而且是顶得起的。你别问，你一次性涨价超过50%了，你今天是100了，你明天卖到170了。
The bane of the world on social media.
I mean, outside of that, there's the ongoing sort of slow decline of Twitter. It's just been going on for the last sort of few months.
It's taken away a few of its features and made them pay only.
That was ostensibly, it was put out there, with the public face on that was to basically say if you've got skin in the game in terms of your social media presence, you're much more likely to be upfront about your contribution to the marketplace of ideas, right? If you are paying to be able to have your message amplified and put front and center in front of people, then, the fact that you then have to have some sort of skin in the game in terms of what you sell. Basically, they were looking for any way possible to turn Twitter into a profitable platform. It has almost never been profitable. Like Facebook and Instagram, for example, they are much better at making their platform profitable. So essentially, when Elon Musk was forced to buy it, he had to figure out a way to turn it around and make it profitable pretty quickly. So that was firing 3/4 of the workforce. The other part of that was trying to monetize verification, which, in my opinion, completely, undermines the idea of verification in the first place, right? Like, the whole idea behind verification on most social platforms was to show that this person is who they say they are. You turn that into a space where anybody can pay for that blue check, then all that verifies is that you're paying $8 a month for Twitter. It doesn't actually verify that you are, who you say you are. The numbers very much prove that it hasn't worked. Hasn't made them money, it hasn't made them profitable. There's a very, very small percentage of Twitter users who have paid for it.
Yeah, there's also that tweet limit as well, isn't there? You can only see a certain number of tweets. Is it 1,000 a day or something like that?
I think depends on what if you're blue check verified, I think it's 8,000 or maybe 6,000. I think a lot of that's been loosened a little bit now.
So these are just different ways to try and monetize it to make it more profitable.
I mean, if you were cynical, maybe that could be why. Part of the reason why. The reason he gave for that was that they were trying to combat scrapers, so web scrapers that were basically costing them money and server time because they were scraping all of the tweets that were going out.
Web scraping means using bots to mine data from a website, which can then be used for a whole range of things, like targeted advertising, creating fraudulent websites, and stealing information. Twitter's not the only platform under fire.
The US is threatening to ban TikTok for all Americans.
New Zealand's government has become the latest to ban TikTok on devices with access to its parliamentary network.
The whole issue is about sort of foreign intervention in the data protection from TikTok. In my opinion, there's genuine concerns about how that data is treated. But it's interesting that TikTok has kind of been the one that they've been focusing on when there's been, historically all of these social media platforms have had issues with data protection, You had all like the Cambridge Analytica scandals for Facebook back in the day.
Is it because it's a Chinese app?
Yeah, pretty much. Because it has that close ties to ByteDance, which have close ties to the Chinese Communist Party. So it's scaring a few people who are in the halls of power, so that's why, you can't have a phone installed on a parliamentary phone anymore. You can't have TikTok installed on that. Any, high-level government phones in the US can't have TikTok on them anymore. So where that goes, and the reasons behind it, I'm not 100% sure, but it's probably going to be a continuing problem for them, I would say.
A growing social media has for years been crashing into the world of a shrinking traditional media. The big multinational companies have used their market power to ignore the creators of the news content that they profit from. In Canada and in Australia, that's led to new laws. And Rafferty Connell says regulation is in the works here too.
Looking at how those large social media companies, technology companies, might be able to, contribute to media and journalism. The argument is that the social media platforms benefit from the content that is being produced by news organisations, whether that be via search or on social media. So in terms of people staying on platforms or spending time on social media platforms, the argument is that news media organisations create content that helps keep audiences on those platforms. And so proponents of regulation that say technology companies should in some way be paying for this argue that it's a form of kind of compensation, I guess, for the content that is being created by media. What we are looking at doing, the shape of how that regulation might look, it looks like it'll be a form of legislation. You've got track record in Australia where the government legislated around social media companies paying for, I guess, the right to show media content on their platforms. That got into some tricky territory because after the Australians kind of passed this legislation, or were in the process of negotiating, for a couple of days Meta pulled all news media content off their platforms.
Like so many other places around the world, Facebook is almost an internet within the internet for Australian users, but those Australian users woke up on Thursday with no access to news on their Facebook feeds, and that comes as Facebook and the Australian government are in this very deep public war about who pays for news content.
So they did that for a couple of days. There's an element of kind of a game of chicken here between governments and social media platforms in terms of pushing each other to the brink. The same thing's going on in Canada at the moment. So Canada have a raft of law going through which kind of covers online safety, but there are some specific elements around forcing social media companies to pay media companies for essentially having their content on their platforms.
Tech giants say the law is unfair and unworkable, that it's basically a tax on links and doesn't recognize the web traffic these digital companies provide to news outlets.
The EU, which is obviously a fairly large geopolitical alliance, looking at data privacy, so making sure that, you know, if you sign up to a social media platform, you can delete it easily. They have something called the right to be forgotten, which means that if you want to essentially erase your presence online, you should be able to do that. If these platforms want to target you with advertising, you are now asking that those platforms have explicit consent from you to do that. New Zealand has just, in the last month, launched a proposal which is around online content regulation. Part of what they seem to be very hot on in that proposal is a bid to regulate social media platforms. We've never really tried to do it in this country.
A new industry-wide regulator has been proposed, independent of government. While it would cover traditional television and radio broadcasters, it's the first time this type of regulation would apply to online platforms too, including overseas social media giants.
Obviously, those companies are subject to New Zealand law, but the tricky thing with social media platforms is that they're global. The internet, to a certain extent, is borderless, and they're very, very large and influential platforms and profiles, and I think it's good to see a country as small as New Zealand alongside bigger players like Canada, Australia and the EU looking at reclaiming some national sovereignty back.
Do you think these platforms are ever going to fail? We're ever going to move on from them?
That's a hard question to ask, right? Because, you know, when MySpace was at its peak, if you'd asked that same question, I'd be like, no, everybody uses MySpace. What are you on about? So, I mean, it's kind of unprecedented the scale that these platforms are at now, you know, billions of users. I'd say social media as a concept probably isn't going away anytime soon. The ways that we use it and how much influence we let it have will definitely change, but I don't see those platforms going away anytime soon, no.
And you can catch the detail back here again tomorrow evening. It's time now for our report from Parliament.
Kia ora, ko Smitho, nā mai ki te whare, welcome to the House. Well, Parliament is back in town.
总之呢，没有什么事情呢是一顿烧烤解决不了的，一顿不够呢就来两顿啊，这是很多朋友们这个夏季的心声。尤其呢是今年夏天呢特别热，在夏天的夜晚来一顿烧烤，真的是非常的自在。来到这个摇滚之城，也是极具新鲜感和体验感的。那么大家来看一看，在央视频中 国这层直播间里的网友们有没有提到自己的家乡有什么城市 IP 或者是城市名片呢？
我们看到 Antonia 他说，常听节目的听众朋友
consistent standards when it comes to protecting staff from sexual harassment, and that will be a question for them. McDonald's as a corporate did sign that agreement we heard about in the piece about sexual harassment, and it was with the Equality and Human Rights Commission, and as a corporate it does insist that this is something it takes very seriously and that there are lots of policies in place. They said there's no place for harassment, abuse or discrimination of any kind at McDonald's, and that they will investigate all allegations that were brought to them. They also said that over 2,000 managers have completed full awareness training and that there are stringent guidelines in place to ensure safe and respectful workplaces, which they expect all their franchisees to observe.
Thanks, Noor and Angie there, and you can read more of Noor's investigation by heading to the BBC website at bbcnews.com. And if you've been affected by any of the issues in that story, there is information and support available by the BBC Action Line. You can get that online by going to bbc.com/action line.
And I've been following lots of extreme weather reports throughout the program. There have been hot temperatures recorded in Europe and the US, and flash floods in parts of Asia. And we have been getting reactions from you on our number, +447786 20 50 85. There's one here from Jude Obeta in Nigeria who says, in Nigeria and Africa in general, we rarely experience such terrible extreme weather conditions like the one that are being mentioned. Another one from Emmanuel who simply says hello from Liberia, and lots of reactions to how the weather is affecting day-to-day living. Rob, do you feel like you are being affected by the weather where you are?
It's definitely in recent weeks been a lot hotter than we would normally expect, and I'm not sure my house is particularly geared up for that. We've got radiators to keep us warm in the winter, but not anything to cool us down in the summer, so often have all the windows open trying to get a bit of a breeze through it, and my kids have been struggling to sleep at night, so yeah, like all of our listeners who've been in touch today, I'm definitely feeling it. Well, thanks for all of those messages. Even if it is like Emmanuel, you just want to say hi, please do get in touch. That is it from Newsday. We'll be back tomorrow. Talk to you then.
Cities talks in China on global warming will mark the beginning of improved relations between the two countries. During the second day of talks in Beijing, he spoke of the need for cooperation to resolve differences. China's top diplomat Wang Yi said there is a need for a healthy, stable and sustainable relationship. Computer chip manufacturers in the United States have urged the Biden administration not to impose further restrictions on their trade with China. Washington has been considering another round of limits first imposed last year on national security grounds. Michelle Fleury explains.
The US-based Semiconductor Industry Association is pressing President Joe Biden's administration to refrain from further restrictions on chip sales to China. A message delivered as chief executives from the biggest US semiconductor firms supposedly descending on Washington this week to press their views on China policy. Because as the temperature of the US-China tech war keeps rising, China recently introduced restrictions on exports of raw materials such as gallium and germanium that are used in making chips.
The heat wave is continuing across southern Europe, with temperatures in the central Mediterranean expected to peak today. Hot weather alerts are in place across most of Spain, and we're just in rollout report.
With southern Europe engulfed in its second blistering heat wave of the summer, today is expected to bring the highest temperatures yet. There have been reports of power cuts as air conditioning systems are switched to full power. Southern Spain is forecast to see temperatures into the 40s, with hot weather warnings covering most of the country. The heat will be just as intense in Rome, and the Italian Weather Service is warning it is likely to continue for at least 10 more days, which would make it the most extreme heat wave the country has ever endured.
BBC News. The Australian state of Victoria has pulled out of hosting the next Commonwealth Games in 2026. Its Premier Dan Andrews blamed soaring costs. He said he wasn't prepared to spend billions of dollars on a 12-day sporting event. The Commonwealth Games Federation, which had struggled to find a host until Victoria volunteered last year, described the decision as hugely disappointing.
Legislation designed to prevent people from claiming asylum if they arrive won a series of late-night votes in Parliament. The bill aims to clamp down on the tens of thousands of people who use people smugglers to enter the UK across the Channel each year. Staff at McDonald's fast food outlets in Britain have told the BBC of a culture of bullying, sexual assault and racism at the firm. More than 100 current and former members of staff blamed managers for the abuse. Noor Nanji reports.
The BBC has heard 78 allegations of sexual harassment and 31 allegations of sexual assault, with McDonald's managers often accused of the alleged abuse.
Per household, for the 2,500 households that'll benefit from the project. To sport now, and Fiji footballer Roy Krishna will return to the Indian Super League after signing with Odisha FC. The national captain featured for Bengaluru last year. Krishna has also played for ATK, which is now the Mohan Bagan Super Giants. Fiji Live reports Odisha FC saying his understanding of the league's dynamics and goal-scoring prowess can make the difference between a good season and a great one for the club. Krishna is expected to join the Fiji national team for the 2023 Pacific Games in Honiara. Fijian Della Shaw has become the new president of the jury in Group 1 of the Commonwealth Weightlifting Federation. Shaw, a former Oceania and South Pacific champion, the first woman from the region to hold the post. The president of the jury has the power to overturn any decisions by the referees should they see a reason to. Fiji Weightlifting said Shaw's election was groundbreaking and an important milestone for Fiji and Pacific women. The election was held on the sidelines of the 2023 Commonwealth Weightlifting Championships. And the Northern Marianas Badminton Association will be sending 2022 mini-games silver medalist Janelle Pangilinan to Denmark to attend the Badminton World Federation Female Coach Mentoring Program. Pangilinan, who's also a member of the local association, her trip is made possible through the collaboration between the 5 continental members of the World Federation and Olympic Solidarity. Aims to develop female coaches and encourage them to join the growing pool of well-trained and experienced coaches across the globe. Female Coach Mentoring Program will also be held in conjunction with the World Champs in 2023 and the World Coaching Conference in 2023, all in Copenhagen. That's the latest in news and sport from RNZ Pacific.
Herman, a conservation biologist and the creator of the website Eat the Invaders, where he shares recipes for common invasive plants and animals. He first developed the concept of invasivorism more than 2 decades ago with a simple argument.
Think about